أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, in our session yesterday, we made a start on the 10th principle, which is the adherence to the noble characteristics and mannerisms of seeking knowledge. And we mentioned that all of our religion in its entirety, it's based on adab. Tawheed is our adab with Allah Azza wa Jal, and so on and so forth. So we talked about this aspect of adab in a lot of detail yesterday. And then we sort of funneled it down towards the adab of mu'amalat. And within that category, the adab that we have of dealing with each other and living our day-to-day lives, within that is a section which concerns us, which the Shaykh is talking about here, which is your etiquettes and mannerisms as a student of knowledge. Obviously, you are going to be interacting with your teacher, your peers, who are your colleagues and fellow students, and you are going to be interacting with those who are outside the circle of ilm, which is normal public. That could include your family, that could include your relatives, your friends, and so on and so forth. So, all of those things, all of those channels, you as a student, there are some mannerisms, some etiquettes that you ought to observe, right? And it is these etiquettes, these mannerisms, that you must become, or you must make a part of your being if you want to succeed in this path. Because we said that the one who does not learn the adab does not learn ilm. The ilm is something honorable, and it doesn't like to be put in a heart which does not have its respect. Right? So having the right mannerisms is the key to getting close to Allah Azza wa Jal, becoming someone who actually benefits from his knowledge. So in that regard, inshallah, we'll continue reading. The Shaykh then brings on the statement of Ibn Sirin rahimahullah. He says, قال ابن سيرين رحمه الله كانوا يتعلمون الهدي كما يتعلمون العلم. Kanu, they used to. Who is he speaking about over here? Obviously the ulama. كانوا يتعلمون الهدي. The ulama of the old, students of knowledge back in the day, they used to learn al-hadiya. Al-hadiya refers to guidance, yes, but also refers to proper conduct, so good manners. So they used to learn good conduct, كما, just as يتعلمون العلم, just as they used to learn knowledge. So learning adab, the right etiquettes. So these things go hand in hand. They go side by side together. In fact, as the Shaykh says, بل إن طائفة منهم يقدمون تعلمه على تعلم العلم. Rather, a group of the ulama from the Salaf al-Salihin, they used to place learning the etiquettes before learning knowledge because of its high importance. Subhanallah. And the one who does not have these mannerisms, his ilm will not benefit him. And this is, in this regard, inshallah, towards the end of this chapter, we'll be talking about this apparent form of harshness that we find amongst the du'at nowadays, the students of knowledge nowadays, inshallah. So the ulama, they used to really, really pay a huge importance, or they used to place a huge emphasis on learning your etiquettes. قال مالك بن أنس لفتى من قريش. Malik ibn Anas rahimahullah, this is Imam Malik, he said to a boy, a young man from Quraysh, he said, يا ابن أخي تعلم الأدب قبل أن تتعلم العلم. O son of my brother, or my nephew, تعلم الأدب. This is by the way, this is a common way of calling a young child, a young man, right? Someone who's younger than you, right? To call him your nephew as a form of showing your compassion towards them. طيب. So يبنى أخي, or my nephew, just like you would call someone uncle who is older than you, or auntie, just because she's older than you. Likewise, this is a way of addressing. So يبنى أخي, or my nephew, or son of my brother, or my nephew, تعلم الأدب قبل أن تتعلم العلم. تعلم, learn الأدب, learn proper conduct, the right mannerisms and etiquettes. قبل, before you, أن تتعلم العلم, before you learn العلم. Subhanallah. وكانوا يظهرون حاجتهم إليه. And it's not just that they used to say that, they used to make their need for learning the etiquettes, they used to make it apparent. And they used to express it. قال مخلد بن الحسين لابن المبارك يوما. مخلد bin al-Husayn, he said to Ibn al-Mubarak, and both of these are Ummah, from the teachers of Imam Bukhari and before. So before Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he said to him يوما, he said to Ibn al-Mubarak one day, he said نحن إلى كثير من الأدب أحوج منا إلى كثير من العلم. We are more in need of a lot of adab than we are in need of a lot of ilm. Subhanallah. وَكَانُوا يُوصُونَ بِهِ وَيُرْشِدُونَ إِلَيْهِ. They used to counsel the young ones and those who were and under them as students or sons or others. They used to advise them with this, right? This used to be their wasiyah to them if they're on their deathbed or they are giving a nasiha. This used to be their nasiha, to learn adab, have the right conduct which is befitting for a Muslim, and then more importantly, talib al-ilm. وَيُرْشِدُونَ إِلَيْهِ. And they used to guide their students and young ones towards this etiquette, where to learn them from, where to learn this from, and how to learn it. For example, قال مالك, Imam Malik again, he says, كانت أمي تعممني وتقول لي اذهب إلى ربيعة تعني ابن أبي عبد الرحمن فقيه المدينة في زمنه فتعلم من أدبه قبل علمه. My mother used to tie the turban on my head. تعممني. She used to buy an amama on top of my head. She used to, subhanallah, she used to dress him up nicely to teach him the importance of going to the halaqat of al-ilm. And back in the day, in those times, tying a turban on your head is a sign of honor. For example, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu once saw one of his slaves, rather servants, praying without a head turban, without covering his head, and he got angry at that, and he said to him, "Do you go out to the public without a turban as well? Do you do that? If you don't, then how dare you stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal without a turban on your head, without covering your head?" And this is just a side note. This point of not covering your head in the prayer for men, the prayer is still valid if you don't cover your head when you pray. But just in the urf of the Sahaba back in the day, covering your head with a turban, this is part of the society. And the ulama, even till this day, they say this is part of the symbols of Islam, that men, as a sign of honor, they cover their heads. And this is not something that is alien to the Arabs, aliens to the other cultures and only found in the Arab culture. It's this thing of covering the head by men, in terms of the caps or hats or turbans. This has existed throughout the world, right? Even in the English culture, they used to have those hats, the round black, those hats that, for example, Winston Churchill used to wear all the time, and X, Y, and Z. So this is a culture that has been prevalent in other parts of the world as well, but more so in the Arab society. This was a form of, when you go out into the public, you should be presentable, and part of that, that being presentable, is to be, is to have a turban on your head. So anyway, so the mother of Imam Malik rahimahullah, she used to tie a turban on his head. subhanallah, just to dress him up nicely, to prepare him for the gold he was about to gather in the majalis of al-ilm. And she used to say to him, اذهب إلى ربيعة, go to Rabi'a. Who is Rabi'a? He is Rabi'a ibn Abi Abdurrahman, the fuqaha of Ahl al-Madinah, subhanallah, or in his time. And she used to say to him, فَتَعَلَّمْ مِنْ أَدَبِهِ قَبْلَ عِلْمِهِ, learn from his etiquettes before you learn from his ilm. So the mothers used to guide their children to learn these etiquettes, subhanallah. And as I mentioned yesterday as well, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah would have over 5,000 students on a given day in his halaqah of al-hadith, and only 500 of them would be writing. So only 500 of them would be students of knowledge. The rest of them were just normal people, general people, subhanallah, learning or attending his halaqat just to learn from his etiquettes, subhanallah. The ulama, when they go out into the public, they carry themselves well. They carry themselves with honor. They are presentable. They're nice. For example, they say about Imam Ahmad, and a lot of these things are mentioned in the biography that I gave you guys to read. Imam Ahmad, the ulama did describe that, subhanAllah, Imam Ahmad there was not a man seen in Baghdad, who was more well kept, who was more, presentable than Imam Ahmad, even though his clothes were simple. His moustache would always be trimmed, his nails trimmed, subhanAllah, whitest clothes that you can see in anyone wearing. So all of that is from the hayba, from the honor of al-ilm, of knowledge, and of the person who carries himself with that knowledge, subhanAllah. This ilm, ليس شيء هين, ليس بشيء هين. This is not something light, this is not something easy. Subhanallah, ilm is something which, as Allah says in the Quran, وَإِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا, that we are to reveal upon you a heavy word. قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. This ilm is heavy. This ilm has weight, right? And only those who are prepared to shoulder this weight can carry it. Otherwise, you all have heard what the mountains said to Allah Azza wa Jal when Allah wanted to give them the responsibility of carrying the Quran. The Quran, they refused. The mountains, they refused to carry the Quran, and it was because of its weight, because of the sheer burden of its responsibility. And it was the man who was ignorant enough to not understand its weight and said, I will do it, I'll take it upon myself. Subhanallah. As all of this is mentioned in the Quran. If the Quran had been revealed on a mountain, the mountain would have turned into dust. Where do we stand with that? Subhanallah. Like, we can't even read the Quran consistently. Like, we can't even, at least open up the Mus'haf and read a page a day. We can't even, read an ayah, on a given day sometimes. Where do we stand? Subhanallah. Right? So this ilm, it requires honor. And this is the honor that the ulama used to learn from even their mothers, let alone, their elders and other mashayikh, subhanallah. The mothers used to give this adab to their sons and their daughters. وإنما حرم كثير من طلبة العصر العلم بتضييع العدب. And indeed, many of the students of today's time, they have been deprived of this knowledge because of having wasted, because of having not adopted or adhere, not holding fast to these etiquettes, not making them part of your life. It's only the harsh moments that truly tell you where you stand in terms of your adab. One day, mashallah, you're reading the Quran and you're reading the books of hadith and you're seeking knowledge and you're studying Arabic, and mashallah, you feel like you're on the top of the world, and everything is below you. And just in a moment where someone comes along and says something bad to you, and you literally lose the plot. you forget where you were. So what did all of that learning Arabic and memorizing the Quran and reading Hadith and all, what did that do to you? When you couldn't even differentiate between, when to speak for haqq and when to remain silent when it's something that is just as something silly as being something personal. And this is a problem that we find today, that a lot of the du'at, when we see corruption in communities, when they fight each other, a lot of the times it's just because they can't, or they haven't learned how to put personal grudges, personal egos aside. SubhanAllah. Anyway, more on that a bit later. So, moving on, the Shaykh says, أشرف الليث بن سعد رحمه الله على أصحاب الحديث. So, الليث بن سعد رحمه الله, one of the most prominent scholars, one of the متقدمون, or the earliest scholars, alongside Imam Ahmad and others, one of the fuqaha. He was in a position of authority, of course, a prominence amongst the scholars of hadith. So he oversaw essentially, he oversaw the activity of the students of knowledge, and especially the scholars of hadith. طيب. فرأى منهم شيئا كأنه كرهه. He saw something from them and he didn't like it. Right? فقال, he said to them, ما هذا؟ أنتم إلى يسير من الأدب أحوج منكم إلى كثير من العلم. SubhanAllah, he said to them, and this is at that time, you're more in need of a little etiquette, a little little adab. SubhanAllah, you're more in need of a little adab than you're in need of a lot of knowledge. Like, SubhanAllah, what is the point of studying all of this knowledge when you're not going to have the proper channel to transfer it, and it doesn't show in your daily life. It has no bearing on how it reflects in your day-to-day dealings with other people. What's the point? Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he famously said that this knowledge is not about memorizing a lot of facts. It's not about the collection of factual knowledge or memorization of a lot of information. If ilm was that, then shaitan would be the most learned person in the world. But ilm is not that. A person could perhaps only know one ayah, but he acts on that one ayah so much so that his whole life is, it represents that ayah. He makes every aspect of his life in line with that ayah, for example. This person, even though he only knows one ayah that he's memorized perhaps, and he only understands one or two or a few things, just a few things from the Quran, so nothing much, but those things are enough to change his life. You see him having good conduct with his family, with his children, with his elders, with the mashayikh, with Allah Azza wa Jal. This person is much more beneficial to the society than someone who is a specialist in ulum al-hadith or tafsir or fiqh. SubhanAllah. One of the scholars of Pakistan, famous, he said something very beautiful. He said that if you see someone in need, if you see someone who is in dire need, like they are desperate for help, and you don't help them, you can't be a good person. I mean, you're able to help them, and you don't do that, you can't be a good person. You can't be someone who is respectable in society. You're just not a good person. You can be a muhaddith, you can be a mufassir, you can be a faqih, You can be a scholar of history, aqidah. You can be a zahid. You can be an abid. You can be the Shaykhul Hadith of the country, Mufti of the country, Mufti Azam. You can be all of those things, but you're not a pious person. You're not a good person. If you see someone in need and you are able to help them and you don't help them, you can be everything and anything but a pious, good, God-fearing person. It's just simple as that. Learning the right etiquettes, learning proper conduct as Muslims with others, especially as a student of knowledge. I mean, student of knowledge, these terms are thrown out and about as if they're just something special. No, a student of knowledge is just a Muslim who wants to get close to Allah Azza wa Jal. He's just like any other, except that Allah Azza wa Jal, He wants khair for him. He wants him to be the leaders for everyone, for others. He wants him to become His representative on earth. It's as simple as that. And if you're studying, if you're specializing, if you're in whatever field, if you're studying for 10 hours a day, you're studying in Oxford or you're studying in Medina or Azhar, you can do all of that. And perhaps that is not representative of Allah's favor upon you. That does not mean that Allah is giving you the favor or tawfiq to seek knowledge. Going to Medina, going to Azhar, just getting an admission, or even going to a seminary elsewhere, or even here in this program, this is not a guarantee of Allah giving you, having a favor upon you, or being good to you, or that He's happy with you, or He's pleased with you. It's only what you do with that ilm. And then Allah will bring you closer and closer and closer. The more Allah gives you the opportunities, and how you use them will prove to Allah that, okay, this person is serious. Give him more. And then you give him more, and Allah gives him more. And then he utilizes these blessings, in the path of Allah, and he grows closer. He grows in ilm. He grows more in appreciation of Allah. He grows more in consciousness of Allah. He's more conscious of Allah. And he teaches this to others. Everyone else around him benefits from this. SubhanAllah. So if this is the statement of Al-Layth ibn Sa'ad to the Ashabul Hadith, right, about whom Imam Shafi'i said, like, when I see you, it is as if I'm seeing the Sahaba. If Layth ibn Sa'ad is saying this to the Ashabul Hadith, the Shaykh said, فَمَا يَقُولُ اللَّيْث لَوْ رَأَى حَالَ كَثِيرٍ مِّن طُلَّابِ الْعِلْمِ فِي هَذَا الْعَصْرِ. What would Layth say if he saw the situation of much of the students of knowledge in today's time and age? What would he say? And he would probably die of a heart attack if he saw the situation nowadays. SubhanAllah. Ma'adallah. Anyway, so we have talked a lot about etiquettes, proper conduct, mannerisms, and so on and so forth in this. You as a student of knowledge, you're just a Muslim who wants to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal, and the best path towards that is knowledge. And if Allah Azza wa Jal is giving you the tawfiq, and He's testing you by allowing you to attend a halaqah, to attend a course, to attend something, He wants to see how serious you are. He wants to see how much honor you give this ilm, how much respect you have for this ilm, because having respect for ilm and for the ulama is from your respect to Allah Azza wa Jal. If you don't respect ilm, and you don't respect the ulama, and you don't respect the rest of the students of knowledge around you, then ma'adallah, how are you exactly honoring Allah Azza wa Jal? Unfortunately, you're not. Unfortunately, you are not. طيب, inshallah. So now let's address this issue of harshness in the society. That we have students of knowledge, we have perhaps graduates from different universities, and some, Muslims, of course, who attend these halaqat, or just they become practicing recently, let's say. They have all of this, this ilm and this energy. But when what we see happening in the society, as opposed to what happened in Mecca, from the change and the da'wah and turning everything upside down in terms of the whole society is changing, the norms are shifting, the social norms are cracking, everyone is becoming more aware of this new religion that has. We don't see that kind of da'wah happening now. Instead, the Muslims, they're too busy fighting one another, or they're too busy defending their egos, right? And then those of the students of knowledge, those of us, or the students of knowledge, who are serious about this, of making a change, sometimes we are labeled as too harsh or too intense, right? Or too serious, too intolerant even for some people, right? Where do we draw a line? And what's the criterion? How do we judge? How do we balance? Right, inshallah. How do we balance this harshness with gentleness? Where's the golden? What's the golden ratio with this? طيب. So we have to be clear that Islam emphasizes kindness, gentleness, and good manners in conduct, while discouraging harshness as a general principle. This is the general principle. This is the starting point. Okay? And many ayat and many hadith on this. I'll mention some of them in a few minutes. Right? So the Quran and hadith, they highlight the importance of compassion and patience in dealing with others. When it comes to the Quran, for example, Allah says to the Prophet ﷺ, he says, فَبِرَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. كما قال, he says, this is Surah Al Imran. He said, so by mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal, Ya Muhammad, you were lenient with them. If you had been rude in speech and harsh in heart, they would have disbanded from you. They would have run away from you. Right? So this verse essentially underscores the need for gentleness, stating that if the Prophet ﷺ had been harsh, people would have turned away from him. Right? So calling each other, when you talk to each other, when you advise each other, right? You call in the best of manners, right? Having gentleness in speech. That is the default position of the Muslims, right? You have a lenient speech. When you talk, when you present, you are gentle, right? For example, the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said a perfect example of gentleness and kindness, of course. Multiple hadith on this, that emphasize avoiding harshness, such as the hadith in Sahih Muslim where he said, "Indeed, Allah is gentle and loves gentleness in all matters." And another hadith in Sahih Muslim as well, where this is a very, very, very important and beautiful hadith for all du'at who work in the society, who work in a community. Gentleness is not found in anything except that it adorns it, it beautifies it. And it is not removed from anything except that it disfigures it, makes it ugly. Subhanallah. Right? This is the foundation. Tayyib, inshallah, this is the foundation in Islam. Gentleness, kindness, showing love and respect to others, and so on and so forth. When it comes to the parents, we are asked to, it says, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الظُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, lower the wing of mercy for them, for your parents. The wing of mercy is a metaphor for, it's a saying, it's a way of saying, bring as much mercy and kindness as you can for them, for your parents, for example. Okay. So now that we know that this is the default, طيب, inshallah, there is no disagreement on this. Everyone, even those who are harsh, right, seemingly harsh, or they are harsh, let's say, and those who are essentially standing just for the haqq. And when they stand for the haqq, they seem too harsh, right? Both of them agree on this. Both of them agree that gentleness is from Islam, being kind is from Islam, soft speech is from Islam. طيب. However, when is this default position broken? Where's the exception to this? What is the exception to this? The exception is when the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal are being infringed. When the rights of Allah are infringed upon, that is when there is a time and place for showing harshness or firmness, let's say, right? Harshness is a difficult word to sort of contextualize in every situation. Let's say firmness for this particular context. When you see Allah Azza wa Jal or His Messenger or any part of His religion being humiliated, let's say, or someone taunting the religion, someone saying bad things about the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? That's a moment when firmness and resolve has to be shown, has to be demonstrated, without turning towards bad etiquette. Even in that firmness, even when your voice becomes a bit firm, even then you shouldn't use bad words. You shouldn't become abusive, right? So now we have two things in front of us. One, the default position in Islam is to have an aura, a composure of gentleness and kindness at all times, inshallah, except where it is due from a Muslim or it is deserving of a Muslim to defend Islam. And that is when Islam is humiliated, or there is a time to defend Islam at that point and defend Allah Azza wa Jal, right? That is when the Muslims have to stand up and be firm. One of those examples would be having ghira for the deen, having this high sense of dignity and honor, a protective sort of dignity for the religion of Allah. Like the example I gave before as well, of the Sahabi at the time of the Fath Makkah, before the conquest of Makkah, when the Prophet was planning a march on Makkah because of the treaty that they had broken. The Sahabi knew that when armies enter a city, it is very possible that people are harmed, right? People may be harmed in that society. When armies come, people who live there, when armies enter inside cities where residents live, it is possible that people may be harmed because of some possibility of bloodshed happening, of infighting, X, Y, and Z, right? A lot of things can happen. Confusion can strike. So a lot of things can go wrong. So what he does is, he still has family in Mecca. So he writes a secret letter to his family just to inform them to protect themselves and stay inside the house, right? Allahu Akbar. He sends this letter to through a woman. Now, the Prophet ﷺ is told about this letter by the angel Jibreel alayhi salam. Now, Allah Azza wa Jal, through His angel, informed His Messenger ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ, he asks Ali and another Sahabi to go and stop this woman at X, Y, and Z situation, X, Y, and Z position. And they do so, and subhanAllah, it's a miracle that all of this situation was taken into control. And the situation of the Sahabi was sort of was brought in front of the shura, the companions, the close committee of the Sahaba who were with the Prophet ﷺ. One of them was Umar radiallahu anh, and Umar radiallahu anh, having that ghira for the deen, he said in a very, very harsh voice, in a very firm tone, he said to him, O Messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal, allow me to chop the neck off this munafiq. Let me kill him right now. Now, you would think that this is quite harsh. This is rather intolerant. Rather, this is barbaric even. Some people might hear that. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ, instead of calling him on this harshness, saying he was being too harsh, intolerant, he affirmed his tolerance. However, he said, "La ya Umar, no ya Umar." He's from the people who participated, who fought in Badr, and Allah has already tested the hearts of those who fought at Badr. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, he appreciated his dignity, his sense of ghira, his sense of this protective dignity for the religion, but he didn't inflict the punishment. He didn't give him the punishment that was befitting for the crime, because Allah had already forgiven him and tested his heart, and he wasn't a munafiq. He made a mistake. Although this was an act of treason, and treason is punishable by death, but here the Prophet ﷺ, because of the Sahabi's participation in Badr and him being a heart which is pure and just making a ijtihadi mistake in this case, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forgave him. طيب. In any case, coming back to our point, the point is that harshness, where it is due, or firmness where it is due, this is from the religion of Allah. In this regard, we have a few principles. The most important of them is al-wala wal-bara. Our loyalties, our love, our friendships, all of this resides with Allah. And our hate, our despise, our enmity, all of that lies in those who are against Allah Azza wa Jal. We learn this from the hadith where the Prophet said, "Al-hubbu lillahi wal-bughdu lillah." Love for the sake of Allah and hate or despise for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So when we find that we are let's say we find ourselves in a dispute, and the dispute is personal, the first thing that this hadith is teaching us, al-bughdu lillah. Do not hate your brother, because this is a personal issue. Let your personal issues just be rested to the side. Forget them. Resolve them as quickly as possible. You're brothers. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Brothers, mu'mineen, believers are brothers. Right? They are but brothers. They are one body and soul. That's how they are. You know, the brotherhood of Muslims is stronger than the brotherhood which is formed by blood. Right? Anyway, these are the few principles that you have to keep in mind. The default position, which is of gentleness and kindness, right? And that gentleness, when it is put in something, it adorns it, beautifies it. When harshness or this gentleness is removed from something, it disfigures it. Allahu Akbar. And in personal relations, like the hadith of the best of you are those who are best to their families. He who does not show mercy to others will not be shown mercy to him, and so on and so forth. Many ahadith that give us this default position. This default position is made an exception when it comes to the point where Islam needs to be defended. Right? It could be in the time of jihad. It could be in the form of da'wah, where the enemies of Islam attack Islam, where they insult Islam, where it is the case of defending the rights of Allah and His religion. It is in that point where you have to show firmness on the haqq. If you don't show firmness in that position, in that time and place where it is the right of Allah and His religion upon you to defend it and take a stand, then remember the statement of one of the one who does not stand for anything, he falls for everything. You will have no sense of identity left. You'll be forgotten with the time. Subhanallah. And Allah Azza wa Jal will just replace you. But you will be a sinner in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you'll have a huge crime on your shoulders. Subhanallah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi. فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه وإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان." He said that whoever sees something evil, anything evil, small or big, he should change it with his hand if he has the ability. If he doesn't have the ability, then he should speak up for it or against it. And if he doesn't have the ability to speak up, he should at least hate it in his heart. Okay? So hating something which is against the religion, having despise for it, all of that is from the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? These are the two contrasting principles that go hand in hand. Gentleness and kindness in all circumstances, except where the rights of Allah and His religion are infringed upon. That is where you take a firm stance. Sometimes you have to be harsh then, in terms of your speech as well, and your conduct, right? And you don't budge. طيب. But even when you're harsh, you shouldn't leave the fold of being just in your speech. You shouldn't blame, you shouldn't lie, right? So justice, you have to hold fast onto adl in your speech, justice and being fair in speech, even when you are being harsh. You shouldn't be using bad speech. The prophets and those who follow them, the Sahaba and others, and after them, and until today, the ulama, they never respond evil with an evil. I.e., they don't respond something which is evil with another form of evil. Tayyib, inshallah. So if someone responds to you, calls you a bad name, he abuses you, you don't in return abuse them. You try and respond in the best possible manner, as is from the mannerisms of Islam. Okay, so even when you're taking a firm stance on Islam, let's say the enemies of Islam, they kidnap you, or they walk, they sort of raid your house, and they arrest you, let's say, and they take you and they say, we want you to insult the Prophet, right? Or we want you to call this person, so and so person, not a Muslim and a spy and hypocrite, just to use you against. And this is something. These are realities, by the way. Using Muslims against other Muslims in the society, in the community. All of this sometimes what happens, right, is not just that people being harsh and infighting is happening. No, sometimes people are being used by the agencies, whatever, right? Let's say this happens. What do? Do you start calling them names and stuff and fighting? No, I mean, there's no point. Just stay firm. No, I would not do that. This is my religion, and I will stay firm, and you stay firm, right? Now, when the majority of the society, and this is the main point here, when the majority of the society has become laxed, and they have fallen into innovation and bid'ah, and they have massively fallen into sin, and you are from those small group of people, the ghuraba, the strange ones in this time and age, a time in which it is holding onto your religion is like holding onto burning coal, right? In this time and age, when most of the people are against you, of course, when you tell them something which is from the religion, and it is not something extreme or not something intense, they are going to find something intense. They are going to find you too harsh, because it is them where the fault lies. It's not with you. You're just following Islam as it is, right? So in that, you should trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, be patient, and not leave your path. And tell them, look, this is from the religion of Allah in the best possible manner. And if they fight you, if they say bad things to you, say to them, salama. As the Quran says, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. When the ignorance, they speak to them, they just say salam and walk away. That's it. It is not from the etiquette of Islam to argue and debate. Those people who are sincere, they're going to find haqq anyway. They don't need any argumentation. They don't need any debating. They don't need any. It's no point in. There's no point in wasting your breath on them, right? So you have to sometimes take a stance, and it is from the ghira of the deen, and no one should tell you against it. Or no, you shouldn't believe anyone against this point, right? Love is for the sake of Allah, hate is for the sake of Allah, but only where it is for the sake of Allah, not your personal gains. And what we see in today's time and age is because of this, that people, if they find it difficult to differentiate when it is a time, when it is a fight of, or when it is the case of ego, and where it is the case of defending the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal. The two things are quite often they're mixed, right? And there are some horrendous examples of this. People simply calling another person a blasphemer, right? Someone who has just, committed blasphemy or insulted the Prophet and lie against them. And then what happens is they turn the entire mob against them, and the mob ends up killing this person, and so on and so forth. These kinds of situations happen in our society, right? In India especially, right? Pakistan as well, but and it used to happen back in the day, but not as much now. But hardly any. But these things happen, right? It might not happen in the Western countries because of the laws being different, stricter, and the social context is just slightly different. But the point is that people turn their followers, ulama, scholars, so-called du'at, they turn their followers against another person. Don't listen to that person. He's just he's an innovator, right? He's an innovator. Or don't listen to him, X, Y, and Z. So they turn Muslims away from each other, where the differences are of two types: personal ego, or issues where the ulama have a difference of opinion, which is a valid difference of opinion. Okay? Not all of fiqh is a valid difference of opinion. Some portions, some places are where the ulama, the fuqaha over the centuries have adopted positions which are completely, categorically contrary to the Quran and Sunnah. Yes, that exists in the books of fiqh as well. But the positions where the ikhtilaf is, it's a valid ikhtilaf. It's a genuine ikhtilaf, disagreement. That has happened because of true disagreement based on principles of knowledge, right? So in these two cases where where your ego is the enemy, and secondly the issue that you're debating is an issue which is it's an acceptable form of a disagreement in Islam. And in fact, Imam Ahmad used to say that this acceptable form of disagreement is from the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal. It is from the ease of Allah upon the religion or his religion and his people and the religion and the people of Islam. طيب, inshallah. So that is in a nutshell. You're going to come across people of these two categories, and this is where ikhtilaf shouldn't be happening, right? People should judge themselves, and this is why having adab and the right proper conduct, and then be the understanding yourself as da'i, as a human being, judging your sincerity, ikhlas. This is where it becomes really important. Are you being patient upon fighting against your ego? Right, you're creating an issue because someone called you wrong on an issue where you are definitely wrong. Own your mistakes. Admit that or confess that you have made a mistake, and just move on. Be brothers. Amongst subhanAllah, in societies where Muslims are a minority and the enemies of Islam are many, it really is stupidity on part of the on du'at and the scholars who encourage divisions amongst the ummah, except where divisions are necessary and they are a distinction in Islam on the Sunnah and Islam which is deviant, which is a deviant form of Islam. In those cases, of course, we can't sit together, we can't intermingle in most cases, except in some cases where the ulama can and sometimes do come together on issues of personal relevance. For example, in Pakistan, generally the principle is that you don't sit with the people of innovation. You don't engage with them. You don't befriend them. You still have to hold some form of dislike for them, despise for them because of their innovation, either because of the shirk they do, shirk as in the minor shirk of rejecting some of the sifat of Allah and so on and so forth, right? These things, like the example of the Qadianis, for example, in Pakistan. This man, he claimed to be a false prophet, and he garnered some followers around him. The ulama of every single sect in Pakistan, regardless of their differences from any field, even theological differences, the minor differences that they have, they all came together. Everyone came together. They sat down, and they, in as a form of like systematic legislature, they labeled them legally in the law of the land as disbelievers. And then this law was signed later on by all the ulama of all the world, the countries in the world, right? And they were labeled as disbelievers, these people who were Qadianis basically. This is a form of common good, right? And the ulama, they can, even if, so the issues of disagreement, they must be judged on a hierarchy. And the ulama, they should always judge the societies. It is not always haram to sit with the people of Veneration. It is something which is not recommended and is highly disliked because of what it can do to your iman, right? This is the general situation. This is the default position. However, in certain circumstances, like today, where issues of Palestine, for example, exist, and issues of insulting the Prophet ﷺ exist, issues where no one disagrees, and this is from the conditions of iman, right? That even then you are disagreeing with each other and you're fighting with each other and you're showing harshness to each other and name calling each other. One party calls the other Khariji and the other calls it calls it Murjia and this and that, Ma'adallah. Ma'adallah. So all of this happens because people are not able to implement the Sharia or apply the Sharia in real time. It is a lack of knowledge. It is ignorance, essentially, where it comes down to. SubhanAllah. Okay? Hopefully everyone makes sense and everything makes sense. And with this, we will call it a day with this lecture. And as I end the recording, I'll answer your questions after this inshallah. Okay? So barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.